All right, let's get going. Welcome to the workshop, Zero to Hero, Automating Application Deployment into Kubernetes. I'm Abhimanyu Selvan. I'm the Senior Developer Advocate at DigitalOcean. A little bit more about myself. I just joined DO in September, and it's my first talk for DO. I'm super excited about it. As a Senior Developer Advocate, and my primary focus is on developer experience and Kubernetes. And outside of work, I enjoy building a lot of tools, playing a lot with cloud native tools and technologies. And I'm an avid runner. I participate in marathons and half marathons. And I'm also a watch enthusiast. I like mechanical watches outside of anything that is digital. And you can find me at Diabe on socials, GitHub and Twitter. If folks are still on Twitter, you could reach out to me. I'm really happy to collaborate and discuss about anything, primarily tech, Kubernetes, and stuff. And a huge shout out to Akhil, who's our developer marketing associate, and Uday, who's our senior product manager for Kubernetes. They're going to be the moderators of the session, so huge shout out to them. Let's walk through the agenda for today. We're going to see what Kubernetes isn't. We'll try to keep the slides really simple, and we'll get hands-on. Let's get our hands dirty and just start playing and building things, right? That's what you're all here for. What is a production-ready Kubernetes stack? We're going to focus on what does it take to build a production-ready stack? What are the other components needed to get to that point? And what is the Bootstrapper project that we're going to discuss today? An overview of the project. And we're going to go over a couple of workflows and infrastructure workflow, or setting up your infrastructure. And then we'll go over a development workflow and a staging workflow. So the goal was to keep this more as close to reality, like how a startup or an SMB operates. Have a developer build a feature and then push that to Git, and then how does that go into production, right? We want to replicate that just to give you an idea, a hands-on idea about a real-life scenario. So, what Kubernetes isn't. It is not a traditional all-inclusive PaaS solution like Heroku or DigitalOcean's app platform, for example. It is not production ready out of the box. Those who worked with Kubernetes know it takes a lot of wiring and a lot of configurations to integrate so many other components to get to a production ready state. So it's not production ready out of the box. And it's not your solution to all your miseries, right? There's a famous saying that Kubernetes is the answer. What was the question again, right? So it's not a panacea for all your problems, and it's not the end game. Well, it's a good place to begin with. So let's begin. What is a production-ready Kubernetes stack? I really like this infographic that Beyond Native put out that gives you an idea about how a generic platform Kubernetes is and what all you could do with it, but that also clearly depicts and shows what other facets are needed to be in place to get to that production ready state, right? For example, you have to have your infrastructure, but we as DigitalOcean provide, and then there is security aspect to it, there is authentication, there's the whole development workflow. Well, someone here says it's the video live start. We are live. I hope you're able to see my screen. Is that sorted, Akhil? All right, let me continue. All right, cool. So there are releases and deployments, and then there's the observability part, right? So you need to put this all together to get production ready. And that was the thought process behind building something called the bootstrapper. So when I joined DO as a developer advocate, right, how do you advocate for a platform so generic as Kubernetes? So you need to build use cases on top of that. So for that, we were able to put together this, let me see, bootstrapper project. It is open source. Feel free to check it out. Uday will send you the links to the project. So what it does, basically, it leverages platforms, solutions such as Terraform and Argo CD to bootstrap your Kubernetes cluster and integrate battle-tested open source softwares. So this has like seamless integration with DigitalOcean services that, such as our container registry, our DNS. Looks like people are having problems. Hope you're able to still see. If not, someone inform me though. Seamless integration with our DigitalOcean services, such as our DOCR, which is our container registry, DNS, and our load balancers. So we, in today's demo, right, we'll be going over a couple of these apps and how the Bootstrapper project uses Argo CD's app patterns to install all these components around Kubernetes. And then we'll go over a couple of these apps to show you how you can get really productive from day one. For security, we'll be going over like Aqua Trivi's Trivia operator for runtime container security. And then for observability, we have like the Prometheus stack, and then we'll look over a couple of Grafana dashboards. For local development, we'll obviously be using VS Code, and there's something called Tilt. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but we'll go over it. It was recently acquired by Docker. And then we're going to use Terraform for our infrastructure setup. And this is the Bootstrapper project. Any questions so far? No. All right. So what you see here is a sample of infrastructure. Like you have a development phase that you see at the bottom of the page. You have the staging phase that you see on the top of the page. As a DevOps engineer, you have to, like, let's say, maintain and set up this infrastructure. We prefer to do everything via code to leverage the whole true GitOps pattern. We will use infrastructure as code, so we will have Terraform modules in place where we could just spin up and tear it down. You can also set up this whole infrastructure via the cloud control panel in DigitalOcean, or you can do it via the doctl command line tool, but we've chosen Terraform, right? And then we'll go over a development workflow where I'll be wearing the hat of a DevOps engineer and developer, but in a sense, this can happen in parallel. Like the DevOps engineers can go ahead and set up the whole infrastructure, and the developers can just focus on building features and making sure it works and going ahead with it. So as a developer, what we will see is we will use Docker Desktop. You can use any cluster. You can use Kind, Minikube, MicroK8s, pick your poison, right? I'll be using Docker Desktop to spin up a single node Kubernetes cluster on my laptop. We will have the whole environment set up using Tilt, which I will show you what it is. It's basically a Kubernetes development workflow engine that simplifies the whole Kubernetes development workflow. So as and when you keep changing things on Visual Studio Code, it will automatically build your software and then push it as though you can test it as though it's on production. So making sure we can configure the whole development environment, and we can set up like repeatable environments. Someone's got a question. Any questions so far? Cron job salary that are running every day. At this, Rovi G asks, how will you manage cron jobs? Well, I'm not. You can set up cron jobs through the how do I say it, in via Argo CD, I believe. So I've not looked into it. Maybe I'll be able to get back to you on that and test it out. But for now, what we will do is just install these apps and your deployments in CRDs in the Kubernetes cluster and make sure everything is running. But that's a good, interesting use case that I will take it up and get back to you. Someone says, will the presentation file be shared? We will share have a recording, so you will get it shortly. Hidden. All right. So yes, for this we'll be using a sample application called the Kubernetes bot. It's simple Golang app that's going to display pictures of robots. And once we're going to build a feature, we're going to push it. Once we've tested it locally, we're going to push it to GitHub, and then GitHub we're going to publish the image to our DigitalOcean container registry. And then we will move into the staging workflow where we will remember in the first we set up the cluster, right, and the container registry. So we're going to switch back to that context. We're going to install Argo CD, and then we're going to run the bootstrapper YAML, which is going to go ahead and configure all this for us out of the box, right? You don't have to run many steps. It's just one single command that's going to do this. So this is the workflow. So we have an infra workflow, a developer workflow, and a staging workflow. So by the end, I believe we will have something like this. This is a whole bootstrapped cluster and different workflows. So it might be a little tricky for folks to do this and listen to while I'm doing it. So it's better that you grasp the concepts, go over the repositories that we will be sharing with you, and then just to get the idea about how the whole thing is in place, so that you can test it and play it around. And it's an open source project, so if you have any questions, or if you want to improve it, if you have some suggestions, you feel free to contribute to it. I'm quite I have a question. What is the main advantage of using container registry over directly CI/CD with GitHub through DO app platform? All right, DO's app platform is a managed pass, right? You don't have the ultimate control of configuring each and every component like Prometheus, and if you want to add, let's say, another policy engine like Kyverno, it doesn't give you the ultimate control. So a framework like this enables and encourages GitOps, which means you're storing the application configuration, your infrastructure, and everything as code. So Git is your source of truth, and then you will be storing everything in Git. So what happens is there is a record of every little change that is being made. So let's say tomorrow someone comes and makes a change, you have a record of it on Git, and then Argo CD will make sure that whatever is on Git will reflect the state of your end cluster, right? Your cluster state will always be in sync with whatever is on Git. So a framework like this gives you the ability and the flexibility to extend things, leverage GitOps patterns, as opposed to using app platform. You can choose any container registry. Doesn't mean you have to choose the DigitalOcean container registry. Container registry, like Uday says, is different from app platform. It's just your container registry is something where you store your images, your container images, and manifest. You can store them in our container registry and use that. There are other container registries. You can use Google Container Registry. You can use Docker Hub. In this demo, we're using DigitalOcean's container registry because it seamlessly integrates with our clusters, and it's our product. We want to integrate it in the demo, but you are free to use any container registry. So Any other questions before we get our hands dirty? Yeah, and I'll be using tools like K9s. If you don't know K9s, it's a terminal UI tool that I use to monitor the Kubernetes cluster, similar to Lens, but it's a terminal UI tool. You can use any tool of your choice. You see something? Okay. If I pause and if I'm not talking, I'm actually looking at the questions. So I'm just making sure that I'm answering you folks and we're not skipping anybody. I hope this flow is clear. I know it may be a lot of things, but let's break it down and let's go one by one and attack the problem. And hopefully we'll see if when the demo gods are with us, we'll be able to achieve the whole state by the end of this session. So let's get started. Some water. All right. Cool. Hey, Jeremy. Cheers. Let's begin. So first things first, let me go back to this slide again. So we're going to set up this staging cluster because we'll let it set up and then we'll get into the development workflow. It'll take some time to do that. Let me open my terminal. Right, you must have the links to the project. This is the Kubernetes Bootstrapper project. I believe we have the instructions there. It doesn't matter how you spin up the cluster. You can, we are using Terraform. There are instructions here. Feel free to go through it. And then there's also instructions to install Argo and then the Bootstrapper. So in the infrastructure directory, you will have the Terraform modules. Basically, what we're doing is spinning up a Kubernetes cluster, DOKS, a DigitalOcean Kubernetes cluster, and a DigitalOcean container registry. Pretty damn straightforward. So let's go back. All right. Hope you can see my terminal. We are in the project. We are in the infrastructure directory. Right. Let's do Terraform init. I've synced up with Terraform Cloud because I have it's easy for me to manage my state files and my variables. You don't have to use Terraform Cloud. You're good with Terraform. All right. It'll take some time. So it tells us, okay, these are your cluster ID will be available after apply. This is going to be your cluster. Give it a yes. Go ahead, build the cluster for us. Okay. While this is getting created, right? Are there any questions so far? Hello, Jose from Colombia. All right, cool. This is our cloud control panel. I can also show you while the cluster is getting created, right? At DO, we really want things to be simple, and that's the primary essence of our whole, whatever products we deliver. We want to make sure everything is simple and straightforward. So the moment you start creating a Kubernetes cluster, it will appear here along with so you see it's already appeared here, and then you can also create the cluster via the console. You just 2 clicks, you'll have it. So right now it's getting created, and hopefully the container registry should also get created. There you go, it's getting created. The container registry is also up. Yeah, it takes about 3 minutes. Host already has a. Can you back up a step or two, or is it too late? Michael, okay. I'll wait for you. Michael, I mean, you could either, the prerequisites are mentioned in the project. You can have Terraform. The thing is, I don't expect you to follow along because there are too many things happening. But if you're following along, that's great. That's amazing. Um, we can wait for you. You can have Terraform, but I don't know how to edit the file. This requires prior, like, at least Terraform knowledge. But Michael, so do you also can you also spin up the cluster using DOCTL, for example, if you have like what cloud provider are you using? Are you using DigitalOcean? So we could also help you quickly spin up a Kubernetes cluster using DOCTL if you want. We also have instructions. If you don't want to use Terraform, you can click the link here I've given in the project where you can spin up a Kubernetes cluster using our DOCTL command line tool. Using DO. Give you the control panel or docs. Super. That's it. All you need is have a cluster and have a container registry right set up. There you go. Michael is sorted. Let's go back. Yeah, good. If I'm going fast, let me know. It's always good to. Is there anyone else also trying out as we are doing? I'll go a bit slow if that's the case. So these are the prerequisites. If you have access to a Kubernetes cluster, even you can also try the whole thing on locally on your laptop if you're using Kind, Minikube, MicroK8s, Docker Desktop. You can do the whole thing in your laptop. So we give you that flexibility. That's the flexibility. Okay, so meanwhile. So okay, if you have questions, for example, about the infrastructure, right? So what basically this example file is, there are a couple of defaults. So all you need to do is edit the file. One second. We're already 30 minutes out, so we need to speed up a bit. So what you need to do here is edit this file with a particular KDES version. For example, if you want the high availability control plane of DOKS and the name of the container registry, just edit the file using any text editor, save it, and then run the command here. And it's going to create the cluster for you. Right, it's taking more than 4. Okay, while this is happening under the hood, right? Let's switch back to our Docker desktop and then go with our local workflow. I'll just make sure it's up and running. Kubernetes running. Context. Let me switch the context. So I'm now switched to the Docker desktop, my local environment. So we're going to do the development workflow while we are spinning up the Kubernetes cluster. Why it's taking time. All right, so this is the the local environment. Cool. Let's go into our app. So feel free to check out this app. They will send you the link. So we're gonna clone this app. We're gonna run this test this app locally, and then we're gonna push the code, and then we'll see what happens from there. We'll take it from there. Yes. Okay. So this cluster is ready. It's done. All right. All right. Just to recap, we have spun up a staging cluster and the container registry is up and running, and we can verify that via the control panel now. So we have our container registry and we have our loaded our staging cluster. Cool. Right, that's sorted. So the infrastructure is set up now. We're going into the development workflow. Just to give you, this is what we're going to do now. We're going to check out this app called Bots. We're going to test it locally on our laptop. We're going to make a change. We're going to push it to GitHub, and it's going to build the image and push the image to the container registry. Right. We have the Bots application here. It's a simple app written in Golang. So basically, it's going to display pictures of bots, static, just displays random pictures of bots from across the globe. Pretty straightforward. What we're going to do is we're going to use something called tilt. So what is tilt? So tilt. Toolkit fixing, yeah. So basically, it speeds up your microservice deployments. You can develop your whole workflow in a tilt file. You can configure it in a tilt file, and then so you can pass it on to your development teams, and then they could exactly get the whole environment up and running within in no time, right? So for that we need something called the tilt file. I've configured the tilt file for this example. So that we can just like quickly get over it. So basically what it does is it tells, so I'm telling what default registry to use, what microservice to build, what ports to expose, and where can I pick up the local configuration files for this. So basically you set all the configurations of the environment and of your microservices, and then you say, yeah, go ahead and use it. So the usage of tilts, you can find the usage of tilt here. It's once you've installed tilt, you just copy the configurations into your directory and just do tilt up. So we'll see that right away. Let me open code, VS Code. So I have the app here, and you have, so I'm going to do tilt up. So this is the UI for tilt. So you see what has happened under the hood is the tilt file has loaded. It has gone and looked into the tilt file. It says, okay, I need to build the app. So it's going ahead and building the Docker file. It's building the image, and then it will finally expose the app on port 8080. Just like that. You don't. So as a developer, all you need to do is just focus on the code. And then just build features. You don't have to worry about how it's going to perform in production, because if you have an environment set up like this, you can quickly view changes like how it's going to run in production. So let's go ahead now, and right, things are looking fine. We should be. So you see a bot app is localhost at port 8080 is already running, so I can test it. And the advantage of tilt, for example, is let's go here and comment a piece of code. Right, let's uncomment this part. Oops. Okay, so what happens instantly is tilt will pick it up. You see, tilt has picked up that there is like a change happening, and it's going to rebuild again, and then it's going to push the code. So the developer can just focus on building features and then keep building features without having to worry about how will this work. I need to write my Docker file and things like that. So now we made like a change, right? Let's go ahead and push this code to GitHub. Let's see. Alrighty. Okay. Closing it. And once you're done with your local development, you can just do tilt down. It's going to tear down all the local files that you've done. It's going to tear them down. And then if you do it stages, you've just made a single modification to the index.html. That's here. And we're going to now just push this code. Git add image. Repeat that, right? Yes. Git commit. Control. Box. We now made local changes. We instantly saw how that reflects using tilt. We committed the code to GitHub. You see a pipeline is now being triggered. The code that we pushed is available. Now the pipeline is triggered. We can go into actions. Now it's going to build the image, scan the image for vulnerabilities, and then it's going to push the code to the DigitalOcean container registry that we've already created using Terraform, like to the DOCR container registry. Any questions so far? Just to give you a short recap. So it's also better to come back to this using tilt. We made some changes. We tested it locally in localhost. Once we finished the changes, we pushed the code to GitHub. You're following number 2. And then it's publishing now. It's building the Docker image. It's going to scan the image and push the image to the container registry. Assuming the pipeline goes smoothly, let's see. And then you'll be able to see this published image in the container registry from our cloud control panel. All right, the job is complete. So let's see what has happened. We are going back. Here. There you go. 37 seconds ago, a new Docker image was pushed here to our Kubernetes CR container registry that we've initially created. So it's available, and we have our Kubernetes cluster also running. Okay. So I forgot to show you folks this. So we've done with the initial presentation, we've set up the infrastructure using DOKS, using Terraform, right? And then we verified the changes right now. We just saw that there is a cluster created. We saw the container registry. We did set up our local infrastructure in Docker Desktop. We explored the app. We demonstrated the local development workflow using Tilt. We pushed the changes to GitHub. And we saw right now that in the container registry that the image has been built, pushed here. Yes. Alrighty. Okay, so now we're going to switch back to the staging environment. let's go back to our staging environment. So I'll go back to Bootstrapper just in case, Okay, and then I'll do kube context. And I'm going to switch here. What I'm doing here is basically updating my kube config. Something's wrong. It's updated. CTL, Kubernetes, kube config. Save. Okay, so we've updated it. Good. All right, so we don't have anything else running other than the default. So we are on our staging cluster. Right, good. Now we're going to go ahead and install Argo CD. So we've done this. We're going to just copy the commands and run it. We've created a namespace. So let's close all the unwanted tabs. And then let's check for namespace. You see a new Argo CD namespace is available. Now let's go ahead and install Argo CD. Alrighty. So let's go into the Argo CD. You see everything is getting created. It has a couple of servers, controllers, and everything is now getting installed on our staging cluster. It's not done yet, just takes a little time. You can also check the events to make sure. And then who. So let's go ahead and okay, now Argo is installed. So Argo is installed. We need to access Argo, and it comes default with a with some credentials. You can use single sign-on, like using GitHub to configure Argo, so that you can just log in with your GitHub ID. But for now, we're not doing the SSO part. So this is like the default. Like every time there's a new password that's created, so we will log into Argo as an admin. Before that, we need to expose the Argo server. All these commands are available in the. Let me put it here. It's better. Okay. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and search for Argo. Okay. Yes, Argo is available. Admin. So password again. The password. There you go. So you have Argo installed. This is the user interface for Argo. I'm not sure if you've played around with Argo. It's a GitOps platform to do continuous delivery. They have several other projects, but CD. So in this, we're going to use Argo CD's app of apps pattern. You can check Argo CD app of apps. And So we're leveraging this pattern to install a parent application, and that's going to go and install the child applications. So we'll send you over the links. So this is the UI of Argo. So we have our staging cluster now. We have Argo installed. Let's check. So you switch to the context. We have installed Argo. We access the UI now. And now let's go ahead and run the bootstrap command. All right, so we've done all this, and now we need to run the bootstrapper. After we apply it, I will go over and explain what is happening pretty much. Okay, so let's go and check once. Yes, so you see now all the other components that is needed to set up a production grade stack is getting installed, not just installed, but also getting configured in the background. We'll go over the repository and I'll run you through it, but you can see here that you have your kubeprom Prometheus stack CRD is getting installed. You have your bots application is going and pulling the bots application, configuring it and deploying it to the Kubernetes cluster. Everything is happening just like that, fully configured. It's I really like Argo, and I really want to also explore more about more into Argo. But I think it's a nice solution. It's a nice toolkit to have to get yourself familiar with different components of Kubernetes, and it can be quite overwhelming. So we could leverage this to as also like a learning tool, or if you're in a startup, if you want to, or you're looking into Kubernetes, right? You don't know, okay, I've spun up a cluster, now what do we do with it? So you can use this tool to get yourself to play around Kubernetes in different aspects of things. But also, like if you want to like build serious production grade clusters, you can also build on top of it to get to that position. So it's quite flexible. So it's all installing at the background. So now, so we run the bootstrapper, and we're going to go here now. So what does it do? So we basically applied a YAML file, and what it's doing, right? It's going inside this directory called bootstrap. And this bootstrap is nothing but a parent application, which is just saying, hey, go to this particular repository and always look for the head revision. And then the path is your bootstrap directory, and go ahead and install everything that's there in this directory, right? Come over here, and then you go into templates. So tomorrow, like all you need to do is, if you want to integrate a new app, right? We need to write the single YAML configuration file and paste it in this directory, and Argo is going to go and install and do everything for you. Like the bots application, like you saw here, is a separate repo, right? We keep the application code separately. We keep the application config and infra in the bootstrapper. There are debates about how you want to keep it like in a mono repo or split the repo, but it's better to, my personal opinion is to better to keep the application code separately and the configuration code separately, so that the developers can just build and focus there, and while the DevOps engineers can worry about stuff. So basically what you're saying is, yeah, it's an application, and go to this particular repository, make sure it's always in sync with head, use the values.yaml file, and basically I'm just configuring the app. I'm just overriding the Helm parameters. So I have a Helm chart for the bots app. So I'm just saying, hey, use this YAMLs file, but also override them with all these values that we've provided here in the values.yaml. So tomorrow, like here, and you have the storage class. Since we're using DigitalOcean Kubernetes cluster, we're using DO block storage. For different other cloud providers, you have different block storages. If you want to enable or disable the app, all you need to make a change here is set it to false, push the code, and then Argo will remove it from your Kubernetes cluster. And that's why this is powerful, because an entry is still here in Git. So it's really useful for auditing who made the changes, and also gives you the flexibility to keep everything as code stored here. So let's go ahead and see if things have installed. Right, there is an image pool. Okay, why is this so? I missed an important step. So what has happened is Argo has gone and tried to install the bots application, but there's like an image pool back off. Try my demo. All right, I missed an important step whilst doing this. So you have our container registry, right? But I've not hooked up the container registry into the Kubernetes cluster, meaning there will be like a service account created, and then the service account should have image pool secrets pointing to, our credentials here as image pool secrets, so that the pods within the Kubernetes cluster will be able to talk and then pull that particular image. And we forgot that step. I forgot that step. My bad. We could simply go here in the settings and say integrated into all, all into this particular cluster, and save it. And then now let's restart. Let's see if that happens. Let's go ahead here. Delete it. Oops. Let's see if pulling image. Okay, now it should work. Awesome. Okay, so if you go here, if you click in Argo, it's gone and installed the stateful set with horizontal pod autoscaler enabled, right? It's installed that. It's able to pull the image into the cluster. So we're good to go. So now what we're going to do is expose this bots app, right? We want the world to see this app. So first, let's look at our services. Since we configured Nginx, we did configure Nginx. Yes. And then that's created an external IP for us. This will also configure a DigitalOcean load balancer, which we will see right away here. So we want to do the DNS part. I'll switch back. I'll first do it and then switch back to the slides to show you what it is. So you go to the domains. I have a domain called heartbyte.io, and I'm going to now the cost of setup like this. It varies. You can. I've now used like larger nodes. It really depends on your specifications, but we can also come up with like your requirements based on how many apps you want to run and stuff like that, and give you like a bare minimum cost TJ if that helps. Right now, I'm just using larger nodes and I'm just maximizing on my resources, but so that's not a true reflection of this setup. But that's a good point. Like I can probably put it as a note there, like what is a minimal requirement, or how much does it cost to run this whole setup on DO at a minimum, right? That's a good point. That's a good takeaway. So let's go ahead and manage this domain, right? Let's go here, edit the record, and then point it to the load balancer IP was created. We'll save it. So let's go back to the slides, right? Let's go back. Yeah. So what we've done now is Nginx has automatically also configured. The DO load balancer here is configured. And then what we did is we went to the DigitalOcean's DNS, and then we've pointed it to the load balancer. So that once it's configured, you should be able to access the app on a public IP, but in this case, a proper domain, right? Okay. But also, some point to note is we've also configured ingress. So let's go into the bootstrapper. The bootstrapper is not alone configured as cert manager. So we're using cert manager for certificate management and using Let's Encrypt at this moment as self-signed certificate, but you can use staging certificates, you can use production certificates. We've configured everything. So you can go over all these application configurations. If you want, you can enable certain part, disable certain part. For this, we have enabled it. And then we've also configured our ingress here. So what we're saying, if there is a domain available, right, in the values file, and for the bots app, use Let's Encrypt CI as your certificate cluster issuer, and for this particular domain, and then expose the port. So we've configured our ingress so that any traffic that comes into this particular will be routed into to that particular service, in this case, the bot service. So hopefully, if things are working, let's open Safari and then see the bots app. All right. You see a fully qualified domain with all the certificates configured in this particular domain, bots.hardbyte.io, that we've just configured, everything out of the box, because we've configured everything in Argo in Git. Thanks for this workshop. Can you have a link to the slide after the workshop? Sure, I'll make sure the slides are available for you. Alrighty, see, we have the bots application round. Imagine just half an hour ago, we were testing it locally on our laptop, and then within half an hour, we moved our app, we pushed the solution, and the solution has automatically synchronized into a staging cluster where we have the certificates configured, we have a proper domain, we've exposed the app to, and you can access the app. Now we've accessed the app, but we need to do something with it, right? Like there's an app. So let's see. We've done the bootstrapper. We've shown the apps on Argo, right? We've updated the DNS records. We've accessed the bootstrapper, the bots app. So now we have something called horizontal pod autoscaler. I'm sure most of you know about it. Basically, what it does, it based on the traffic and the resource requests, right? It is going to auto scale your application, and then once the traffic is low, it's going to scale down. So we're going to demo that. We're going to artificial flood this app with some traffic, and then we're going to see in K9s how it's going to scale up the bots and then scale down as well. All right, so let's go back here. Let's check HPA is configured. Yes. So right now, we could also do this while Grafana, right? Because we configured Grafana. So let's go and do it on Grafana. Let's go to Grafana because we've configured Grafana. So hopefully we will be able to access that. For this demo, we're just running them in the local host, right? But if you want to, you can have a proper domain for it. Let's see. There you go. Automatically, Grafana is also available. And operator. And then there. Bots. See, fully configured, so you can monitor. You have your applications now. You can monitor it, check what's happening, and everything is just done under the hood for you. So you're able to now view the dashboard. You can add more dashboards. The goal of this workshop is not to go in depth into each of these applications, but just to give you an idea of setting up something like this. We have the bots app. So now we're going to flood the bots app. Let's open a terminal, another terminal. We're going to use something called Hey, just a command line utility that's going to just flood in this bots app. So soon, if things go correctly, you will see that the pods are going to scale. Like there'll be a couple of more bots pod coming up. We can also see that on K9S. Let's go here. Is it working? It should. Yes. Okay. You see now the replicas are increasing, and here you go. A new pod is popping up to accommodate to the new traffic, right? Like your application's been flooded, so we've set up horizontal pod autoscaler, so it's gonna like spin up a couple of pods. I've also configured the maximum limit, so you don't want to like keep scaling up. We're not going to go into details of how to configure all that, but just a demo, you see the bots are now scaling because there's more traffic coming in, and your applications should still be working, hopefully. Let's see. It's good. So since you have like your kubeprom stack configured, you're able to now also monitor it via Grafana dashboards. So we'll stop it, and then a little later you will see that it's going to scale down. We'll come back to it. Yeah, so we did HPA on K9S. We saw that. We also got the Grafana access. We logged into Grafana. We generated the traffic using Hey. We showed the HPA on K9S and Grafana, which you're just seeing at the background now, right? And we've stopped the traffic to show you the scale down. And we just left with one more step, and then we'll probably answer some questions and go over any specifics. How are you all liking it so far? Is this helpful for you? Do you think you'll be able to use this in your organizations? Let us know what sort of improvements you want to see with this as well. So let us know. Again, let's go back to our presentation to go back here, right? We'll touch. So on the development side of things, we touched a bit on Tilt, VS Code, Docker. On releases and deployment, we saw everything is through Helm chart on GitHub using Argo. We did check the Grafana and the infra part. We created our cluster through Terraform. Nginx was configured, Cert Manager was configured, Let's Encrypt Issuer was used. And now the cleaning part is Aqua Trivi. We're going to see the security. Runtime container security now. Security is important, folks. It's really important. And let's go back. So for security, we've used Trivi operator by Aquasec. There is you can check them out. Basically, we're doing like runtime cluster scanning and making sure we get like vulnerability reports and audit configs. And I've installed that as part of the bootstrapper here. If you go into the bootstrapper, into templates, you will, if you go into application_Trivi, you see I'm telling them to, this is the repository, this is the chart that you want to install. You can version the chart, and Argo is going to go ahead and install the operator for you. And if things are configured correctly, right, we should be able to see the vulnerability reports here. There you go. We have the vulnerability reports. If you want, you can export it to an endpoint and view it separately. That's out of scope for this particular session. So we see there isn't much of critical or high issues for our bots application, but there are like other high issues here we can describe. You feel free to like go over it and fix those vulnerabilities. We can, maybe it's fixed in a newer version of this particular stack. So, but this just gives you an idea that anytime you deploy something, it's gonna like scan for vulnerabilities, and it's gonna like report to you. You can also use config audit, right, or audit config. Yes. Okay. So let's go to the stateful bots and we'll describe. All right. So it's gone over and it's giving us some checks. Let's see what it's found. So there's medium. It says host path volumes must be forbidden. So it compares your code with the standard practices, and then it provides suggestions on like, hey, there is like a privileged escalation, or hey, you have root access. So it's gonna go and then compare with a certain set of standards, and then it's gonna like report this. We can prevent it before as well, but in this case, I'm just showing you. Yeah, so you're able to now get like a security report on what. Sometimes it's very easy to overlook things, right? It'll be like, yeah, someone just did something without understanding the low level stuff, and then but then when you have a system like this in place, you can easily pick it up. And as a DevOps engineer, or even as a like engineer yourself, like a developer, you should, I encourage everybody should understand a bit of what's happening also under the hood, and what does it take. So even a small mistake can lead to people compromising your clusters and taking it down. But if you have, it's better to have certain systems in place for security. So that's it. We saw security, and that, folks, is the end of this live demo, and I'm having nothing screwed up majorly, so I'm really happy about it. Let me know what you think. Alrighty. We do. Is there any questions so far? Or are there some apps that you want me to integrate into it? But most importantly is, if you can provide feedback on this, if you think, okay, we can improve stuff, or if you think it's an overkill, right? That's also good to know. If you feel that it's an overkill for your workflow, I'll be more happy to also know about your workflow, so that it's good for us also to understand how people are using Kubernetes. And if you think this is too complicated, it's not for you, that is also fine. But we'd also like to know, understand how you're doing things. How are you setting up all this by yourself, or are you using like a managed pass offering? Yes, we can also head over to our Discord channel for more questions if you have. I was hoping for a one button turn. Yes, Razwan says, I was hoping for a one button press to build the demo environment. Yes, Razwan, that let's go to tilt, right? That one button here for you is this tilt file that has everything configured for you. You need to have tilt installed, and then all you have to do is do a tilt up, and then it's gonna, of course, you should have your local cluster running, obviously, and access to that. And then when you do tilt up, tilt is going to go ahead and do all the configurations for you, build all the Docker images, the services, everything for you. It's not going to magically do it. I've configured the tilt file, so for this it will work. But if you have a new application, you need to write your own tilt file, and you can visit their website for more like how do you want to configure it. It's just like a wrapper around Python, so it's pretty straightforward. And then it does live updates, and it does smart builds, right? If you make a change to your readme file, it's not going to build the Docker image again. So it's quite smart that way, but it's also how you configure tilt. You can have multiple microservices configured for tilt. Yeah, in this case, we just have one single service, which is our bots app, right? Yeah. And then if you want to have like more configurations, you can just keep them separately. Your Helm config or your config file, you can say, hey, I don't want to use Docker desktop. I want to use like Minikube. You can place your contexts here. If you want to change the name of the services or the ports you want to forward, configure it using tilt. We don't have any affiliations with any of them. We just want to make sure that you folks, DigitalOcean is all about simplicity, and we want to make sure that you have a simplified experience, and we want to remove the pain for you. So we're just suggesting different tools and technologies out there, battle-tested softwares, so that it eases your job. And then there's like no particular lock-in. If you want to use, like, there are a couple of apps like Octato. If you want to use Scaffold, there are many other options. Go ahead. Was it taking into account? Mention what technology stack do you deploy for monitoring Django web app? For a web app, I would say if you have the kubeprom stack, which is your Prometheus, Grafana, Loki stack, Loki for logs, Prometheus to scrape the metrics and stuff, that would be good. You can still have all your security. You can still have your security in place for it. You can have yeah. Does that answer your question, Ernestas? Go here, and then you can still have your Prometheus, Grafana, Loki stack. You can have Argo, because Argo can manage your web app, right? You can still have Trevi and Snyk if you want for your security. You could still reuse the whole thing instead of the bots app here. Basically, you can have your Python Django app, and then create this single application template here for your Django app, just telling it to pull from there, and it's gonna get seamlessly installed in your cluster, and then you could still leverage the other. Okay, I added a few replies for my previous messages. Thank you for explaining. Thank you. Cool. Okay. Maybe is that like I heard like there's some confusion about. Is there any confusion here? Are you all familiar with these technologies? If not, we could like explain a bit about it. Okay, cool, Rasvan. I'm curious to explore Docker environments. So they've come up with something called Docker environments. in Docker Desktop, I want to see what it is and take a stab at it. The dev environments in Docker. I'm assuming it's something. Yes, local Docker environments. Yeah, cool. I want to try that and maybe just use that. But Docker is also quite tilt. I mean, but we could keep everything within the Docker Desktop frame. Yeah, thanks, Richard. I'm gonna like VS Code spaces. Cool. Yeah, they're going big on. Yeah, it's all about now developer experience and the whole drive towards. Yeah. If you don't want a particular app, right? Let's say I don't want all this. I just want a security app, and I just want a Prometheus stack, right? You can configure it in the YAML file here. You can add a bit of flags here to enable or disable the apps, or just fork it and then take whatever, remove everything that you don't want, just start building with simple things. I would say the basic things that anyone would need is like have something for security, runtime security, have something for observability, which is the kubectl stack, Prometheus, Grafana, and Loki for logs. You can also skip Loki if you don't want, just have these in place and then you're good to go. Local K8s cluster built in. Yes, Richard, that's the case. Richard says Docker Desktop has local K8s cluster built in. That's the one that I use for the demo. I use the local K8s cluster by Docker Desktop. Rizwan says, yeah, it is, but I wasn't doing DevOps myself. Always new to me. I don't know how to run a local cluster. I need to Niku and I'm running containers separately. Yeah, there's plenty of tutorials on how to do. We also at DigitalOcean have a lot of tutorials on how to set up local Kubernetes and getting started with Kubernetes. We'll feel free to feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to get you started with Kubernetes, whether it's local or on our DigitalOcean clusters. Yeah, I missed out any questions so far. Yes, the recording will be out. Some of you have asked for the slides. We'll make sure that the slides are available for all of you. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Richard. Right, Kings do TGP says Helm install and tilt up. Okay, tilt up is live, so it constantly tilt. If you see, it constantly looks at your code, whatever you're changing, right? Any code change that you make is going to get reflected automatically. So it's going to keep scanning your code. Oh, he's made a change to the code. I need to build it. So it's going to build it and push it, and then you don't have to create a chart for it. You can create a Helm chart, but then Helm is once you install it, and then you need to just uninstall it and do this whole flow again. You don't want to create a chart, install a chart, upgrade a chart, and then uninstall a chart. You don't want to go over this whole process of even going into Helm. You just want to change code as a developer, build your feature, and then let Tilt worry about how you want to build it locally and push it, right? Maybe how much time do we have? We have like 15 minutes. I can quickly show you again. What's that to us? Okay, let's switch back here to our local Docker desktop environment. Okay, let's move back to the code. Any other questions? Hats, bots. Right now, I'm in my local Kubernetes cluster. We can just do tilt up. All right. So it's now, yeah, because we're already using Argo in this particular port. So let's just close Argo and everything else right now. So that let's cancel it. Okay. Just make sure it's clean. So as and when you're changing your code here, Tilt is going to recognize that a code is changed. It's going to do like live builds and then push it to a local registry, or you can even configure to push it to container registry, Docker, DigitalOcean container registry, any registry, but we can just keep it local. So it's acting real time. It's looking at it. Oh, it's changed it. It's going to build it. You can't do that with. Will this work on? So you can't do that with Helm, by the way. Will this work on Windows? Good question. With Windows and with WSL, like, do you know what flavor of Kubernetes is running on? I'm using Mac. If you can have like Kind or Microcates or maybe Minikube install Minikube. Yeah, Minikube works on Windows. Yes, I've tested that. So you can install it on Minikube. So you can spin up your cluster using Minikube, and then just run the bootstrap or script, and it should work. However, you should make sure that you have like a load balancer configured. So you need to enable the Minikube add-on, like Metal LB add-on. Yeah, it's not a cloud provider, right? So there are some limitations of it, but if you want to like check the different apps, you can achieve it. Yes, Tilt is purely, King says, Tilt is for dev purpose. Yes, Tilt is purely for development purposes, improve your development workflow. So you can basically have this snapshot saved and then pass it on to your developers, and they will have the entire environment running in Kubernetes for them. So interesting. There's been a lot of like questions about Tilt. Cool. I'm happy if this helps you folks to speed up your development workflow processes. Yeah, Zadkiel says that you can use Rancher Desktop or Docker Desktop. Indeed, yes, it's a good one. So you can also check like the logs. You can disable a resource, and you can save the snapshot. You can have this file saved somewhere, and so that your developer can just check out and then use this and then spin up the environment. Docker Desktop Kubernetes cluster tilt file to start the project locally. Cool, Razwan. Check it out. Let us know. I'm also curious. I'm going to check out the Docker developer environments. Yeah. Yeah, cool. There are also tools like as telepresence. Okay, inside. Tools like telepresence that you can use. You can use something called Octado to spin up ephemeral environments on yeah. So basically, you have like a copy of your code running on a remote cluster, and then you can just do your whole development like you're running it on your laptop, but you're literally doing it on a remote Kubernetes cluster. Regarding security, we use Aqua or Snake. All right, Richard, in this example, I've used AquaSec's Trivy operator, but I've also integrated for the bots application, right? I've used Snyk to do like the code scanning. But Snyk, I'm not sure. I need to go deep into it to see. But the free tier version does not just does like a bit of static code analysis. I believe so. I'm not too sure on that. For this particular demo, we used AquaSec. Yeah, cool. So I think I've also integrated Snyk. Just you can go to snyk.io, right, and then log in with your GitHub account. and then I've just pointed it to the bots application, and so it's like found some vulnerabilities in the deployment YAML. Yeah, here. But you can also get this from. We also got the same one from the Trivi Aquasect Trivi operator. You could do it either way. Yeah, I think that's why I said like you can either do pick the problem like we did it. Yes, I think Trivi offers more for free. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So the goal of the bootstrapper is to embrace open source technologies, right? That's free, and then so that people can just try out. There's always with the plethora of all these applications available to us, it's really confusing to pick and choose what apps that we want. So our goal is to have a sort of an opinion, right? You need to begin somewhere. So you need to have a particular opinion on how to approach things and then try to like expand and extend on it. But yeah, without a particular opinion, it's really difficult. You see how many apps and companies are popping up in this space, and it's really difficult to keep up with them, right? So yeah, that's why the project is just it contains with certain apps. It says, hey, these are some of the apps that you can use. Feel free to use anything outside of this. Yeah, if we can fit the CNCF landscape in this single monitor, I'll be surprised. That's really the stuff. This one says, what do you use for debugging? Hmm. At the level of Go, Java, Rails, microservices. But what about between microservices in the cluster? At this moment, I'm not using anything to debug stuff within the Kubernetes cluster as one. To be fair, it's difficult now. 20% done remote debugging in the past, but this one seems a better experience. Yeah, huge shout out to them. Check them out. We want to also integrate these apps into the Bootstrapper, and then probably we'll have like do a demo. Hey guys, we're gonna wrap up. Awesome. Thanks, Richard. Happy that it's of was of use. Um, Check it out. Let's get in touch if you wanna. Thanks, Rizwan. Thanks for your questions. Actually, it made us also. Thanks, Alex. That's great. Yeah, yeah. It's a we're all in this together. Have we achieved production ready yet? No, we're almost there. We're getting there. It's all about getting to that point, and with the everything that's keeps on changing, right? We're gonna keep building on top of it, and we need to make sure that we stay sane while we are doing something like this. So, yeah, cool. Thanks, Mita. Thanks. Cheers. Yeah, I can follow me on GitHub or Twitter at Diabe. Reach out to me. Thanks all, and a huge shout out to Uday, who's our senior product manager for Kubernetes, and Akhil, who's our developer marketing associate, for an amazing job moderating this session. Thanks, folks. Hey Uday, if you don't mind, can you also send them like the Kubernetes adoption journey link so that if they want to like dive deep into it, we have Uday and his team have put together an extensive documentation on how to adopt Kubernetes with a lot of um, hands-on labs, which is pretty cool. It's here in the adoption journey in DigitalOcean. They have in docs, they have step-by-step guide to setting up a production grade cluster. What we did was just automated a couple of things, but they have like in-depth procedure and reasonings given for each of these apps. So you can take pick and choose if you want to go deep into it. Follow these sessions, labs to go deep into it. Um, yeah, and we also have a couple of what was that? Yeah. We have some offers also running, and I'll probably share it in the chat. Just feel free to avail them. Yeah, cool, awesome. Thanks everybody for attending, and really happy that you all attended, and let's keep in touch. Thanks everyone.